You hear me?
Hey man.
Oh, can you?
How you going?
Good, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, well, thank you.
You got the Matrix background.
Yeah, yeah. Been playing around with a few different backgrounds lately, and I just, I thought it'd be, a good thing to have for this one.
Yeah, you're good with the tech stuff, Joe. I watched all three on Sunday.
What
After
did you?
after I watched that Passio presentation, I've watched the first one heaps, but like thought I'll go back and watch the second and the third one.
Yep.
Yeah.
And how were they?
Yeah, like he said, they're a little bit harder to follow and they're harder to watch. But he sort of he explains why that is, because he says like the second movie's about why, because like the first movie's what's
Yep.
the Matrix. The second one's why, and he said people subconsciously don't want to
Turn
know
off.
why. Yeah, because
I watched the whole thing, the
the Passio one,
whole analysis. Yeah.
it's pretty cool, isn't it? I reckon.
Yeah, man, it's great. It's great, and it's good how he finishes it off as well at the end. He's like, "You're the person. You're the only person that can get yourself out of it." And not only that, but aid humanity and in everybody. I guess we've been breaking free from the thing, but I think one of the biggest, things is that people think it's all make believe in many ways.
Yeah.
So
You watch. You watch all types of movies, don't you? And then you just start to think, because there's so many powerful movies too. And people have this idea that, the cults created all the movies, but even in the cases when they still have to use like this universal blueprint, like with the hero's journey, stuff like that too, because it's in our psyche,
yeah,
isn't it? But then
yeah.
people don't act on. They put themselves in the hero for the movie, but then they go back into their normal life and they don't want to be the hero.
Yeah, well, it's that, but it's also like, I think the case with a lot of movies, there's a lot of obviously a lot of disclosure in movies,
Yeah.
whether that be on purpose or, I mean, it's probably on purpose. I don't think many things happen by accident these days, but people kind of just go, like, I was talking to a friend a long time ago about some stuff, probably some stuff about what was going on last year.
Yeah.
And he was like, David, life is not the Matrix. It's not the Matrix. I was like, it's absolutely the Matrix.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of the movie is symbolic and lots of it's literal,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah,
I think it's tough sometimes figuring out the symbolism comparing it to, or,
yeah.
taking one and comparing it to the other, or, finding out which one is actually literal and what's not, because I think that's where they blur the lines, don't they? And that's the problem, I think.
I remember doing in year 12, we did, have you seen the movie Gattaca?
No.
Oh, man, you watch that one.
Who's that? I've heard of it.
Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman and Jude Law. But like, we had to watch. I watched it like 10 times over and over again. Read the script, stopped and paused every scene, and like the symbolism is just epic when you break a whole movie down and what it's really about. But like, this is this future, where you get marked at birth, we're all genetically modified. You get picked for your specific role.
Oh, right.
And then if you have like a normal birth, you're in the bottom of society because you haven't got these elite skills and sort of stuff. So it's pretty cool.
I watched a video just last night about a 15-minute clip, and it's difficult to kind of figure out like which one of these clips is real, because there are so many things, and some of them look so fucking real. Some of them, like some of them are. Some of them's like it's too real to be real, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it looks kind of not necessarily a setup, but way too produced. Like it's this woman sitting in a boardroom or something, and then the camera just like zooms in on her eye or something, like at the perfect time. But then there's other ones where it's like maybe like a security camera footage or something like that, where there's a dude and he's kind of like, there's people in the background, and this one guy is kind of just like having not an epileptic fit, but he's having some sort of a fit, you can tell. And his teeth are all weird, and his eyes are all weird. And I've seen other ones on of newsreaders, because apparently, a lot of newsreaders apparently.
Well,
So,
the most famous one, and that's classic counterintel.
where
Is
the
like,
necks are going all weird, and the teeth are,
yeah. But obviously, like with counterintelligence, if there's some reality to it, they'll put out 90% fakes. That's how they do it. Same with UFOs. But the most famous one is it's George Bush Sr. and Bill Clinton. They're doing an interview and they keep switching. It's a close-up.
Okay.
And you can see, it doesn't shake shit, you can see very clear slit pupils. And that's not a fake, that's a proper film.
I have seen one of George Bush Sr.'s ones where, I don't know if it was with Bill Clinton, but it was another one where he was, it looked very demonic. Yeah.
I mean, you only need to look in like Kissinger's eyes and David Rockefeller.
Yeah, but do you think it's a bloodline thing, or do you think it's like the vril lizard? Do you think it's that too?
I think there's multiple. I think you've got 3D reptilians, but I think the hijacking here was this interdimensional force that came through the bloodlines. This sort of interbreeding, that goes back to the Bible and where it says the sons of God bred with the daughters of man, all this sort of stuff. And like Babylon, or like the Sumerian tablets talks about the Anunnaki and the Builder race, and there's so much. I think there's multiple reptilian races too, but
sure, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, but
it's just one of those.
It's bloodline though too, because that's where did royalty come from? That's the divine right of kings,
blue blood,
the divine right to rule. You have a genetic authority over the slave race, and that's why they all interbreed. Whether it's reptilian or not, there's something about their blood that they see themselves as having the right to rule, and that's the R complex in the back of the brain. That's where hierarchy comes from in our evolutionary.
Yeah, we all have a reptilian part of the brain. All the humans, we all have that reptilian part of the brain. Yeah. Well,
we can talk about that forever, man. But I don't know if you want to touch on the George Floyd thing today. I haven't seen much about that.
Oh yeah.
I already saw there was some writing and stuff.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because he did get convicted. So, it's kind of like either way. If he gets off, then it's his writing. If he gets convicted, writing too. I don't know.
Oh man, if he had got off, I'm glad. If he had got off, it would have been absolute carnage,
pandemonium. But it happens all the time, doesn't it? That kind of thing.
I've just seen a new clip, and there was a young 15-year-old I said was shot by a cop today in America.
I saw that.
So is that going to be the next one?
Today, a new one.
Yeah. Someone just sent it.
One a few days ago. Maybe it's the same dude, or
it might be the same one then. Yeah.
Jonte something, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I saw two clips of that. Like one was during the day, and the cop. There were two cops, and one of them went up to him and had him in handcuffs or something. And all of a sudden, the kid jumped back into the car and started to try to drive away. And the other cop ran around and shot him.
Yeah.
But then I saw another one, and that was during the day. But I saw another one at nighttime, where I don't know if it was the same kid. I'm assuming it was, because it popped up around the same time. And in this one, he had a gun at night. So it's difficult to tell, because you always get, it's like the same kind of deal with these kinds of things that are clearly setups, or clearly some sort of a false flag.
Yeah.
There's always multiple accounts of what actually happened. And sometimes, like, do you remember that one where that soldier in the UK got stabbed to death, got hacked to death? Remember that?
Lee Rigby, yeah.
Lee Rigby, yeah.
Yeah, that was pure fake.
Yeah. And because there were so many, first he was decapitated, then he wasn't decapitated, then he was again, then sometimes the body moved.
No blood on his hands, and knife had no blood. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and there was a woman walking straight past him. This knife-wielding guy in the middle of London. Well, it wasn't in the middle of London, but somewhere in London.
I don't know if you remember. Do you remember when that was? It was about 2 or 3 days before the Bilderberg meeting, which was about 10 k's down the road. Yeah,
Yeah.
Bilderberg's always about this time of year, and they always do a false flag the week of Bilderberg, always. But they didn't have Bilderberg last year. It got cancelled last year, Bilderberg.
That's interesting.
Isn't it?
Why do you think that was? Yeah.
Well, they've never cancelled it, so... Well, it was right. It was at the peak of the pandemic. It was like April last year.
Oh, okay. You could argue that would be
That's
the reason.
why they officially said
yeah. But it's, you know, those people, they have their own planes and stuff. They can go wherever they want anyway. They run the world, so they can.
Yeah.
They don't need to really follow by the rules, you know.
I mean, it would draw a lot of attention, though, wouldn't it, if they're holding a Bilderberg meeting and everyone was in lockdown?
True.
Yeah,
they could do it secretively, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, whatever, man. We'll just have a chat.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cold.
Yeah, so I jumped on. How is it?
Mate, it's freezing.
Victoria. Yeah. I saw on your Telegram that you posted about the jab. Oh, there was a newspaper clipping about how people are turning it down, not wanting it, and
yeah, it's pretty encouraging.
Yeah. Oh, very encouraging. Yeah, and it's like I would say that's happening in every city. You know, you couldn't, and now they're trying to fast track it. I think they're opening it up to all the other phases now.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a spleen, so I'm on the spleen registry, and they send you like stuff every now and then. They just sent me one yesterday saying that I'm eligible for early jab.
Yeah. You sent it back?
I just didn't reply.
Tell them to fuck off.
Interesting though, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's good because it's like I'll just go to the gym in the morning and see the news there, and it's like the whole news is just consumed by the rollout.
Is that?
And
yeah.
Pretty much in the morning. I mean, they have different stories too, but it's largely that, or maybe the travel that's opening up and stuff. But but it's all like people are obviously, you know, hip to it now, you know, and if they're not hip to it, at the very least, like you said, you've got relatives and who are pro jab and they're not getting it, and I do too. Yeah. So at the very least, it's that, you know, if they're not aware of what's really going on, at least they know that they don't need it, and they can see a coercion when they you know, can spot on a coercion when they see one.
That's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of people are still like in the truth movement, they're still like, really sort of panicking about it. I'm like, the more I'm saying, the normies, like, they don't know what's going on, but they know they don't want it. There's some sort of something that's triggered them. And I think, like, I'm not watching the mainstream news, but little clips I'm seeing, it's coming from the mainstream. That's where their doubt's coming, because they're not looking at any other stuff. They don't have alternative sources. So the mainstream's the one putting that into there. And then, like, even the politicians, you know, banning the certain jab. And then, but then you've got, you know, like, people have got this idea that the whole idea they're doing that is to push over to the Pfizer, right? Because the Pfizer's a dangerous one. But I don't know. I think a lot of people wouldn't touch that either.
I think, well, we had a woman. Oh, sorry, it was in the paper. I think she was in New South Wales. A 48-year-old woman who passed away.
Yeah,
and that was on the front page here. And you're right. I think people are just, because you can see adverse reactions for any of them. It doesn't matter which company makes it. So it's not even in my opinion, it's not even like a case of a lesser of two evils or four evils. It's like they're all bad. And so people kind of go, oh, well, I won't get that one, I'll get this other one, but they're all, you know, they're all the same pretty much. And
that's like the bigger picture that's eventually going to roll out, because there's still people that go, oh, like, yeah, I'm pro jab, but you know, I'm not happy with the COVID one. Well, eventually you're going to find out the hepatitis one's no good, the MMR's no good, Gardasil's no good. They're all no good. The flu shot, all of them. It's nothing new. And people that are worried about them putting tech and nanos in vaccine. You know, like what they've been doing that shit forever. We're breathing that stuff in all the time. We're covered in nanos. You know.
Yeah.
I think this is
From the chemtrails and stuff, or
yeah, absolutely. There's like some evidence to say they've put nanos in food as well.
oh, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised.
but
I have a friend who had Lyme disease, and he got Morgellons as well,
yeah.
and he had the threads and stuff coming out of his body.
Oh, shit,
and yeah, I didn't see him, but I happened to see him on the weekend. He was walking his dog, and we were talking about it. And he was like, "Yeah," he told me about Morgellons. I'd never heard of it before. This is a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Let me know what you think of it." So I had a little bit of a look, and you probably know about it, right? About
yeah.
What the deal is. But for anybody who doesn't know, basically Morgellons is something that you'll go to, and you have sometimes you have these threads coming out of your skin, and it's quite obviously something, and that most doctors would just tell you you're crazy and that it's nothing, it's your imagination. But then every now and then there's a doctor that will look into it. And
that's amazing.
And the funny thing is,
I've never heard anyone that's actually like a doctor said that's what it is. Like, because you have to get to the microscope and stuff, wouldn't you, to see the tech coming out of the skin? Because I reckon everyone's got it anyway. It's just some people's body starts to reject it a bit more than others. You know, that's when it comes out.
That makes sense. But what he was saying was that it originated, well, animals get it. Animals have a version of it too. And in animals and humans, it happened about 20 years ago when it started. Or that's what he told me.
Yeah.
But at some time, it happened about the same time for animals and humans. And it's well recognized in the animal world as something. I can't remember the name that he used, but something. But in humans, it's non-existent. It doesn't exist at all. So they just think you're crazy. So to me, it's pretty obvious what's going on there.
You know, there's a good book, Alana Freeman's. I'm trying to think what it's called. It's on chemtrails, but she talks about it like it's this sort of space fence. There's multiple, because I've been looking at the clouds for many years. Like I saw a documentary called "Why in the World Are They Spraying?" and "What in the World Are They Spraying?" years ago, and they're basically like introductory. It only really touches about the surface level, but it leaves you with no doubt this is what they're doing. And then there was a thing called the Lynmouth disaster in the 50s in the UK where the RAF were spraying or cloud seeding in where was it, Devon or something, and they caused massive floods there. A lot of people died. So they were doing this
just by spraying in the clouds.
So they can move. There's another company that I think it was an Australian company. They were hired to go over to Africa to end the drought, and they could easily manipulate the clouds to start rains. And then you think of the bushfires in Australia the other year. They could have put them out in a day if they wanted to.
Every year.
They've had this technology since at least the early 50s.
Yeah, I heard of some documents. This dude called Peter Little. You know Peter Little?
Yeah.
It's a Melbourne dude. Yeah. He said he had some documents that stated that the Aussie government's been controlling their weather since the 60s.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think so. Obviously, I think it started with it's military technology. This because that's when the RAF were the first using it, or first recorded to use it in the UK. But there's another lady, Kristen Megan. She did an awesome presentation. She used to work for InfoWars years ago, but she's a former Air Force lady, and her job was to check every chemical that came in on the base. And then so she heard about chemtrails and said, "Oh, this is all nonsense." And then she was seeing secretly barium, strontium, uranium and stuff all getting dumped in. And she went to report it. And she was a single parent.
Oh, right.
They said that if you ever acknowledge this, that we'll put you in a psych ward and your kid will be taken away from you. And she ended up becoming a whistleblower. Yeah.
Wow. She's still alive?
I think so. That video is about 10 years old. But she used to be a reporter quite a while, but like do people say that they're not controlling the weather? Do you know, even like down here, we had like 2 weeks ago, I left, it was 30 degrees, it was stinking hot. I came back and it's bloody snowing down the road from there.
Wow.
Space for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's insane, isn't it?
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
hard. It's
we've
hard
had
to
some.
know. It's hard to know what's natural and what's not, though, isn't it? With weather changes.
Exactly, yeah, because we've had some pretty funny ones. Like around the time that the worldwide Freedom March was on, it was stinking hot. It was like 38 degrees or something, 37. That was like 2 days, and then Monday it was like 25 or something.
Yeah.
So you don't know. And I also think that because they change it so often, because they control it so often, it messes with the system as well, right?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to say about Alana Friedman, because she calls it like the space net, and they create. Well, you've heard like Bill Gates. They want to. He's been talking for years. They're creating this barrier to stop the sunlight coming in.
Mm-hmm.
But then, so she's talking about what the military uses it to is for connectivity of, like their high level communications, and because the sky becomes ionized through the metals in the sky, and they need this for their communication. And that's why they did a lot of spraying. So they it's well documented they did it in Vietnam, in the Vietnam War. And that's why they got huge, in Forrest Gump, they sort of do that parody on it where he goes, it kept on raining.
Yeah, vaguely, yeah.
Yeah, because they were doing a lot of experiments with the weather there too. And they were using it as weather warfare to flush out the Viet Cong by causing monsoons, because they knew that they were in the tunnels, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's great.
It's crazy, isn't it?
They did a lot. There was another one called the Phoenix program they did in Vietnam too, and this is like MK Ultra stuff. It's sick. But then they also did all the heroin trafficking during that period out of Vietnam. Yeah, there's a guy called Chip Tatum. He used to fly all the heroin in and out of. And he worked directly for George Bush Senior as his pilot.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
CIA pilot. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's
I'd heard of one of the biggest reasons why the CIA. Well, the CIA was made for a lot of reasons, right? But they were the biggest importer and exporter of narcotics in the world,
and weapons, and children.
And exactly. Probably a lot of.
Well, that's because it's all black budget, because the CIA they're supposed to get a certain budget from the federal government, but they're completely void from there now. They become a rogue agency, or pretty much were invented as a rogue agency, and so you can't fund your programs getting taxpayer dollars. You've got, and like you're talking like they're involved in like these huge underground bases, like the one in Australia. That's a CIA base, Pine Gap.
Which one's that?
Pine Gap. Yeah. So like, how do you fund these things? It's all black budget, and then you look at all the false flags and stuff that are going on, and this is like connected to NATO Gladio Network, which is part of the CIA as well, and that's these terrorist attacks. These are huge operations. They cost a lot of money to run them. So how do you fund all this? Well, the drug trade's basically the most profitable trade in the world, isn't it?
Yeah, and the sex trafficking.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a crazy world, man. Like, since we're on the topic of Australia, I don't remember exactly when it was, but I was in primary school, I think, when Port Arthur happened.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything, back then. But then,
how old are you? How old would you have been? 96.
I was 13 in 96.
13. Yeah, right.
So
yeah, I was. Yeah. So I was 13 too.
Were you?
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Okay.
I was 11. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember that.
Too young to really know anything about what's going on for me anyway. But now looking back at it, I mean, obviously having looked into it as well, just all the crazy things that don't add up, and how they took all the guns away. It's just they're just preparing for now.
Well, it's the 25th anniversary next week of Port Arthur massacre.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And look, people talk about the sealed documents on the 28 pedophiles, right? Run by John Howard. John Howard put suppression orders on the Port Arthur documents as well.
Did he?
And the building, which the cafe that was a crime scene, he ordered it demolished before any forensic
Oh
evidence
wow.
was taken. And that's a crime. You can't tamper with a crime scene. And he ordered it
Sure.
done out of respect for the victims. But
But
then
he wasn't prime minister then, was he? In
he just
96.
got in, just got in. Yeah.
Okay. He
So
was. How long was he in
96,
it?
he defeated Keating in 96. There's actually a document, Confessions of a Satanist, and he talks about that was basically John Howard's initiation, was for him to partake in Port Arthur and the cover-up of Port Arthur, and that's how he received
Oh,
his
okay.
33rd degree Masonry after that event.
Do you think Masons started off as a good outfit?
Yeah, I do.
Like most things, they just got infiltrated.
Well, I think like you look at all the secret societies. If you go back, there's a guy created Mutwa. He's a Zulu shaman, and he was part of the South African secret societies. And he talks about the reason the secret societies formed, and I think this was the case for all of them. Was that was when the colonialists and stuff come over. This like specific to South Africa, that they had all this hidden knowledge about history, the world, how everything went, African history. Psychology, brain sciences, everything, interdimensional stuff, and that
Okay.
they had to keep that information secret because anyone that knew this stuff was being persecuted and killed. And I think that's how a lot of these sort of secret societies formed. That they, like the Gnostics and stuff, they were, they kept their knowledge secret as well because you were going to be executed. But then I think that's what they did. They eventually infiltrated these groups.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no, pretty rare. Because there's like Freemasonry's, it's got key truths in there too, and they've got you have to have some belief in a higher power to become a Freemason. That's one of the criteria. But I think the
Okay.
low level.
My grandfather was a Freemason. Yeah,
Yeah,
apparently my
and
grandfather was a Freemason. I don't
you
know how.
can't you
It wasn't
can't
very
taint
high.
every Mason, can you? You can't taint them all with the same brush.
Mm.
Like, because
Yeah.
some people go, oh, you're like, I don't know, if there's a certain person that talks about, if you're a Mason, that's it. You're involved. Like, it's not, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I
No,
mean?
it's not like that at all. And it's like anything. You've got your different levels, and I would go out on a limb and say that it probably doesn't get really dark until you get higher and higher and higher up, right? So the people that like the dude I told you about who had Morgellons, he's a Freemason, but he's only like really low level. And I asked him about it. I said, what was your motivation for joining? And he goes, I got a message. I got a message. I was called, from higher up, from a higher
Oh,
source,
really?
and that's what he said. Yeah, he said it was God told him to join. He got this message,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, it's interesting. Are you not worried about some of the rumors going around? He's like, no, well, I've never really, I don't really go into, I'm not that high, and he has no idea, right? I mean, he has an idea because he's well researched, but
Yeah.
he hasn't had any negative experiences, and he probably won't until he gets to the upper echelons.
Yeah. And it's like, anyway, you could say, oh, like, why are you in the police force? You're like, well, I'm a cop. I do good things, like but is the police
Yeah,
force
exactly.
involved? Is there a secret society within the police force? Yeah, they,
Yeah.
like I've worked as a teacher for like the education department. Is the education department got its own hierarchy? Yeah, it's like that's how it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything's compartmentalized pyramid structure. That's how they've like structured the whole planet, haven't they?
100%. Yeah, it's really interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens afterwards. Like, because those kinds of things don't just disappear straight away.
Well, look, we need a whole restructure of society. How many jobs are useless too?
100%.
You can get rid of the tax office. How many people work for freaking ATO?
Yeah.
That's a useless job.
Yeah, we can get rid of the tax office. I hope they do.
But what did you were an accountant, weren't you? I watched the video saying you worked in accounting. You didn't like it.
Yeah, I did. No, I hated it. It was terrible.
What was the lesson? What was the experience of that for you? Like, why do you think you went through that just to realize you didn't like it?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think one of the biggest lessons is as soon as you feel like you're not you're not gelling with something, it's time to move on. That was one of the biggest lessons I got, because I was there for like 9 or 10 years. It took me a long time to get out. And one of the biggest reasons I didn't is, it's like, when you go to university and you spend 3 or 4 years doing something, and then if you get out and you don't like it, then you feel like you've wasted that time.
Yeah.
It's stupid. That's why I don't like the school system. And there's so many other reasons why, but that's one of them. And then so you feel like, oh, you owe it to yourself to go at least work there for a year. And then it just keeps going and going and going and going. And then eventually, for me, I was just too scared to even move companies, because I didn't like accounting. I was like, oh, I'll get found out that I'm an imposter. And I had imposter syndrome. I was like, I don't want to go and work in another company. They'll find out that I suck, or something like that.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of courage to move on. And
So was it any specific thing at the end that you just like, nah, that's it, I'm out? Or you strategic plan to get out?
Yeah, so the way it happened was I moved over to London, and whilst I was in London, I had what I would say my first awakening. And then with that came a lot of certainty and drive and confidence that I was like, I'm done now. I'm not going to go. I still went back, but I was working on something else, to make a transition. And long story short, I moved to Melbourne and started a business that didn't work out. And then ever since, 2016 up until last year, I would say, I've been taking the time that I probably should have taken after school to figure out what I want to do with my life. But I did it in my 30s, in my early 30s or late, mid 30s. And it's not ideal. You know what I mean? Doing it then, I was lucky. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I don't have a mortgage. So I was able to do that. For a lot of people, they don't have those luxuries, and they've got all these responsibilities, and they can't necessarily do what I did, which was quite reckless. I must be, to be fair.
Do you know, like me hearing that though, do you know what I'm hearing? You are describing the slave system perfectly.
Yeah.
And especially with university, because like I had that same feeling too. I was like, oh shit, like, do I want to be a teacher? Well, too late. I put 4 years into that and then some, and then, and you're like, well, what can I do? But the thing, because people used to be equipped and skilled in all things. Like back in the day, like I knew a guy that he moved up to Nimbin for a couple of years. Now he's not qualified in anything, but he just lived in a community with people that taught him it. He can fix his own car. He can build his own house. He can do his own plumbing.
Yeah.
He knows how to grow all his own vegetables. He's a musician. He's like everything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And it's just like multi-skilled. But with the university system, it's like I'm going to be a dentist, or like especially in science, I'm going to do science, not just science, but you're going to focus on this part and nothing else. And that's how they've controlled us too, because all the sciences aren't talking to each other. It's like you focus on this and that's it. And everyone's got little pieces of the puzzle, but we're not like, you're not learning everything. And I'm like that. I'm useless with like cars and like anything handy, because I went the white collar route. And it's like, I wouldn't mind just quitting now, doing a pre-apprenticeship at like 36, become a builder or something, learn a normal, because like it's made me think now, like what's important. These are the skills probably in the future that they're going to be important, aren't they?
For sure. And it's just, when I, over the years, obviously I developed an opinion about the school system and stuff. And then I realized who created the school system. And I was like, well, that's not surprising. And and it's just it's interesting because you hear that name pop up in fucking nearly everything. It's like everything, that name pops up somewhere, somehow. Yeah. But going back to what you said about different skill sets and stuff, and it's absolutely done on purpose to kind of just, in my opinion, it would make so much more sense if you spent the 12 years that you were going, in primary school, primary school and high school. If you spent that 12 years figuring out like what you wanted to do and what you liked and what your interests were and your passions, and working out, learning about the mind and how the universe works and things like that, but then also honing those skill sets that you really just leaning into your strengths really is all it is, because the way society is set up is just so is so unproductive, because there are billions of people out there doing jobs they hate, you know, that somebody else could do much better, that they love. Maybe they just didn't have the opportunity to do, you know, and vice, you know. So yeah, it's ridiculous how society's been set up, but you can see why.
Like this crap when you're at school, man. You're like 14, and then you're starting to pick your elective. Well, if you don't do this by 15, you can't do this VCE subject. And you're like 14 years old, and they're like, oh, what do you want to do with your life? Man, I didn't want to do nothing at 14. I want to have fun. Like, I didn't want to think about that sort of shit. But and you can say, and that Prussian education model, like especially they got adopted in America for that. You can say they honed that in here too, and Bill Gates is behind that too. Common Core, it's one of the main. You know, obviously his connection in with the Rockefellers. That's what a lot of people don't know that about. Everyone talks about him being involved with the jab and, you know, all these other sort of things, but you know, geoengineering and Monsanto and everything else he's involved in. But like education's one of the big ones as well.
Yeah, right. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
but it's ridiculous though that there's so many things ridiculous about the school system. You know, we could talk for hours about that. I think that, like you said, you know, knowing what you want to do at 14, 15, 16, even 17, even like, man, there'd be people that are 30 that don't even know what they want to do.
I don't know what I want to
do. You know, and it takes a lot of self-knowledge and time to, you know, you have to kind of, for me, I had to kind of just try as many things as possible over the last few years, because I'm not getting any younger, right? But if you leave school, you've got plenty of time. You could take 5 years to figure out what you want to do, and you'd be 23, and you could then do that for the rest if you wanted to. You know, you have so much time, but the longer you leave it.
That pressure when you leave school, though, that's very real. I remember that, and I'm going, oh shit! Like I joined the world now. What am I going to do? I don't know. But you know what?
Yeah.
There's a great quote. John Lennon said it, and he said, when I was 7 years old, I got an assignment by the teacher. What do you want to be when you grow up? And he just said, I want to be happy. And she said, I remember. And she said, you don't understand the assignment. He goes, you don't understand life. Whether he said that or not, right? That's epic quote.
Yeah, for a 7-year-old kid.
Yeah. John Lennon.
I would say that there's some 7-year-old kids that could be that wise at that age. Maybe he's got something channeled or something, maybe, but yeah, for most people though, you know, most people don't understand life. And life is, you know, there's so much to know. How could you understand it all? You can't, you know, like there's just too much out there. And every time you kind of think you find out something new, you'll learn something later down the line that probably negates that, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's just important to be just learning all the time, you know, so that way you can always you get ever evolving.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's where open mindedness for me has come from too, is from being duped. I've been duped so many times. and then when you wake up to that and you're like, oh shit, and then you get fooled again. Yeah. And then you sort of like, I become a bit defensive about like my belief systems and shit as I got older. It's because like, well, I've been fooled so many times before. How do you know it's real?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I thought you meant, because there are many different ways you can get fooled. I mean, I've been fooled many times in certain instances, but humanity's been fooled
on belief systems, really, like just certain beliefs that I have that have changed by being fooled.
Sure, yeah, for sure. But we've all been fooled for so long, haven't we? You know, constantly being fooled. That's how the system works. It's deception.
Yeah, and I feel like, and there's this sort of thing within the truth community too about like there's sort of like a hierarchy of knowledge and like how when you woke up and how much, you know, sort of like, I mean, you'd see that too, wouldn't you? But it's like the whole point is you're supposed to embrace anyone that's got an open mind. That's a fantastic thing. And then because I was listening to Mark Passio one yesterday too. He did one with Mark Devlin. I've been listening to him heaps lately.
Oh yeah.
And do you know what he was talking about? Because even this challenged me, because I've been having this belief with the jab that I'm like, I've been telling people about, you know, these things and how bad they are for years and being laughed at and mocked and all that sort of stuff. And then obviously after last year, and then I come to this belief that I was like, bugger them. Like, if you don't want to know now, I'm not. I don't even want to talk about it. It's like too late in the game. But then Mark Passio was saying, he's like, no. He talks about like natural law and action, like action being the most important thing. So once you've got the knowledge, that's your responsibility. You can't.
Sure.
You don't keep knowledge to yourself. Like eventually, here's a point where you don't hammer someone if they don't want to know anymore. But like what you're doing, putting out videos, he calls that like that's the great work. Whether you know or don't know, you know something's wrong, and you're putting in an effort to like your action is making videos, and that can't be underestimated either. Because like what are we supposed to do now? We can't take them on through the law. Like Serene Tefaha has just been taken down, or they're trying to take her down. We can't take
Who's that?
Oh, so she's a lawyer in Melbourne, Advocate Me, and she's filed all the class actions with the towers as well.
Oh, right. Okay.
Sexual abuse involving government agencies, stuff like that. So they've stripped her of her license, or they have, but she's trying to appeal it.
Wow.
So it's like, what are we looking at? Like, we can't take them on for the law. We can't take them on. We can't take up arms. They took all our guns.
Yeah.
Like, what are we supposed to do? The only thing left is to like share information and
purchasing power.
Yeah, that hopefully enough people, you reach this, key point, or this percentage point or the tipping point of people knowing. Like, what are we supposed to do? I always think about that. What are you supposed to do?
Well, it would be good. Yeah, it would be good if we could take over the airwaves or something. But logistically, that's not going to happen. But you're right. We kind of just have to, whether we have a big following or not, it's just putting it out there, and people could see it. If they see it, great. If they don't, at least you tried. And I've noticed that my reach on Facebook is really, really low as well. I would put out a vaccine, a jab post, and people I'd get quite a few responses, and then recently the posts just aren't really doing anything. So who knows? But yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? Like, you just kind of do what you got to do. As long as you're doing your part and you feel like you're doing your part, that's what matters the most, I think. And
you can only control your own actions, can't you? But I don't know. That's what I always feel like. What do I do? Like, I've gone to the protest. Well, what did that achieve? Well, like, it was sort of solidarity, and it was good, like being with like-minded people. Did it achieve anything? Maybe it's just a moment.
Maybe awareness.
Yeah, awareness.
Maybe awareness.
But like, I know personally, just from like, like I'd post stuff for like, the last decade on Facebook, and like it was usually like 90% abuse of people.
Sure.
And then you start, your brain starts telling yourself, if I post this, I'm going to
have an anxiety.
Yeah, and then you start, and then you self-censor. But that's what, when last year kicked in, I was like, fuck it. Like, they're going for it now. Like, there's no playing around. They're clearly going for it. And, but, eventually you sort of do override that, like what people think of me, don't you? Like that's the key control. And like, I still do care. I care what people that are important to me think of me. But based on, like, if I've got a different belief system, well, without being arrogant, half the time I'm pretty fucking close to the money, and the ones that think I'm an idiot are so far off that they can't see it.
Yeah, you're right. I think I would just because of what you said about caring what people think, I wouldn't put it past, or I wouldn't rule it out that a human's ability to care, or they're being afraid of what people think of you, could very well be a programmed thing, because it's all in your head anyway. So they could have put that in there somewhere along the line. Yeah, but it makes a huge difference because you get some abuse, and then I just wouldn't post for a while.
Yeah,
and then eventually you kind of build up the courage again. You do it again, and who knows? Maybe the reach isn't what it is, or
Well, that's like, what do you think? Like this whole new craze happened in the last few years, like Instagram, or like chicks just post pictures of their asses and stuff too, because you're getting that positive feedback all the time. All right, I post a picture of my ass, I get,
Yeah.
700 likes.
Yeah, true.
I post something that's against the grain, or what people aren't going to like, something controversial, I'm going to cop abuse. Well, what do I want to put out there? But that's a hurdle you overcome, isn't it?
Well, I don't know if many people would want to see a picture of either of our asses.
Definitely not. I don't know your ass, but not mine.
No, but you make a good point, because it's either way. You put something out and you get abuse, and it's really funny. I think sometimes how people you may put something out that's kind of like in the middle of the road, it's quite vanilla or something. Nobody will say anything. But you put something too far left, too far right, and all of a sudden people get triggered and they go to town on you. And it's like, where were these people? I'm sure they saw my other posts, right?
Yeah.
But because it didn't trigger them, and it really just comes down to the ego. They don't want to have their ego. I guess people would rather believe the liars than believe they've been lied to, right?
Yeah. And then, do you know what Pascal was talking about yesterday too? And it's so true. It's like he was saying that this is a karma event, what's happening now too, because we've sat back. Like a lot of us have known how corrupt this world is and what's been going on. And what have we been doing? Because and he said 9/11. There's they did I can't remember what it was. They did a poll years ago about 9/11. And it was like, what percentage of Americans believe that the government had some involvement in it? And it was like 70%. It's huge.
Okay.
So it's like, what, you're still voting and stuff in that, participating and following what the government says, and you believe that the government was involved in murdering your own civilians? That's the tiniest thing that they've done. But how many people know about 9/11? It's like, I don't even have that debate anymore. If someone wants to talk, we can talk about the specifics and the nitty gritty and how it did it and who and why. But to think that the official story, I'm sorry, that's the end of the conversation for me. I brought it up with people and I go, do you actually believe that? You believe? And they go, yeah. And I'm like, okay, this conversation's over.
Well, they just haven't looked into it clearly, but
but you know what?
It is funny, isn't it?
Do you know how it's weird how people wake up? Because I had a guy at my work, and I was telling him about 9/11 for years, constantly. Didn't want to know about it. He went away with a friend for a camping trip on the weekend, came back, and he comes back and he's like, holy shit. He's like, that's all true. I'm like, why have you not listened to me? He needed to hear it from someone else. Because I was just...
it's that, but it's also like you've planted that seed. And you're constantly watering that seed. It takes a while to,
Yeah.
But you hear something more than once from a few different sources and you believe it. Sometimes you hear something in the truth community and you go, don't know if I buy that. And then it pops up somewhere else and you go, okay, I can see how that could be true.
Yeah. Yeah, you need that discernment. Yeah. I was trying to think.
Yeah.
So no. Shit, don't worry.
You reckon old Andrews is going to come back in June?
Mate, what do you reckon? What do you reckon?
I don't know. I saw that post in your group, and I don't know, to be honest. I mean, we haven't heard much from him at all until then. And if he does come back, whether he does or he doesn't change anything for me, really.
Look, if I had to have a guess, I would say probably no, because what they're saying now, June, he's not come back till June. There's other theories flying around at the moment too, that there was some big altercation to do with a minor or whatever. I don't know if you've heard that. There's absolutely no...
A minor, as in an underage person.
An underage girl. And there was some incident and he got beaten up or whatever, but...
Oh, yeah, I did hear about
these things fly around. There's absolutely no evidence that occurred. But, something severely weird is going on. I don't buy any of it. I don't buy that. I don't buy the official story, and I'm not buying the stories that he was at bloody what's the name's Fox's house and all that sort of stuff too. It almost feels like there's counter narratives playing out that sort of they do want to show this connection with Fox, with Lindsay Fox, obviously that because he got the contract at Avalon to build these detention facilities or whatever they're called or quarantine facilities.
Oh, yeah,
and then like what I've told you about before with like that they put out the Lindsay Fox met with Ghislaine Maxwell in Australia in the period in the 90s, I think it was 94 or something, that she's under investigation.
Okay.
Like, it's just sort of weird how they're putting all these sort of these connections in there, and like why would you put Fox in there too? And then he is a transporting magnate with these trucks, and it's just going to tie into stuff like what we saw with Evergreen and stuff there in the future, because you got Ghislaine Maxwell meeting with Fox, and then he obviously owns all this massive trucking company. Is there going to be something there? I don't know. But then, like, have you seen, like, they got 2.7 million documents got given to the defense of Ghislaine Maxwell. Because they've asked for it to be put back, so they've got time to go through the 2.7 million. Now, if you think that is
that documents as in sheets of paper or multiple sheets of paper per document?
It's 2 points. No, sorry, I think it's 2 point. I'll have to check. It might be 2.7 million paper. But you think about that. That's crazy. That is years, probably decades of surveillance that's been run on her. Or not just surveillance, but reports, police filings, whatever. 2.7 million. So when I heard that, all I think of is that's showing the corruption of the FBI, the government. It's showing the cover-up. Because even when they're covering it up, they're documenting all this stuff, right?
Yeah. Why would they do that? And then why would they document it? Because then there's a record of it. They
just document everything. It
seems to be that way, yeah.
Yeah, but like, because there is like official things that have to happen. If someone goes in and makes a police report, even if it gets pissed off or thrown away, it's usually documented. It's put somewhere. But I just thought that was crazy when they said 2.7 million, because like I think I've told you before, like that's going to be the breaker in America is the Maxwell case, and then the Sydney-based VIP ring, CIA Australia ASIO pedo ring based out of Sydney. That's going to be the breaker in Australia, and the 28 people on that list, and they do connect.
Yeah, the 28. That'd be, of course, yeah, that'd be interesting. If Ricardo Bossi said if he gets in, he'll release that. I hope he gets in. Yeah, not just because of that reason, but for other reasons too.
Yeah, he's look, I can see him getting in, but he's not going to get in under the current system, because like they're obviously rig every Australian election too, right? They rig them all. So it's and he knows this too. He knows this. He's even spoken about it. So why is he running if he thinks it's a rigged system? But like, I think he knows, and he's waiting for something to happen. Something's going to collapse his system, and then maybe he'll run. Or he didn't actually. I went and saw him. He came to my town, and he said he expected that there would be a federal election by, I think he said October or November of this year in Australia.
Okay, because it was supposed to be next year, wasn't it?
It's scheduled for next year, is it? Yeah. I think, well, I think at the very least he has to get his name out there, So he's got to do the work now to get elected, no matter what the system is. Yeah, he's doing the groundwork. Yeah.
So, yeah, he's got to do the legwork now. Otherwise, when the time comes, nobody will know who he is. So whether it's under the current system or not, he still needs to get his name out there and do the do the campaigning and do the tours and everything like that. And I mean, I really do hope he gets in, because I read the policy. Yeah, it looks pretty good to me.
Do you know what I liked about his model was because people want to join the party and stuff like that too, and he said to some people, like, why don't you run a candidate in my area? And he's like, we're not in charge of that. He said, you form your group in your area, and then you run your own primaries, and then and everyone that's a member within your area, they'll vote you in. Because he said, like, they've been approached by other politicians and stuff, and he said, oh, we'll run for your party. And he's like, no, you can't run for our party. The people will decide if you run for our party.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good system, isn't it? So, like,
it's more, yeah, because if you've got somebody in a town or whatever who is interested in doing that, and they align themselves with the right party, then they're going to have a lot of people in that town that they know.
Yeah, that's right.
And the people will elect them.
Yeah. But and he was talking about this other thing, and I think they do it in like they're doing it with Gavin Newsom in California, in which they can call you. I can't remember what they call it, but they can call you, call for you to be like removed at any point, or like a re-election if you're not performing your duty. So it's like,
right.
And because politicians come in, they have no contract with the people. It doesn't go through the court system. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. They never do it.
Yeah.
And we got stuck. We just keep going back for more, don't we? And it's like, I don't know how many people have fallen for the whole Liberal Labor. I still know people that are like, I'm right wing or whatever the hell that means. And because the right and the left, they've all switched now. But like, what does that mean? What are your beliefs? And it's usually a status thing in Australia. Historically, it's been status. You're working class or you're white collar. That's how it's been.
Correct.
But it's
exactly right.
What's Labor? Labor's like, that's like cultural Marxism, communism, tyranny. To the left.
Especially in WA with our last election.
Yeah, that's. See, mate, don't tell me that wasn't rigged. How do you win by that much? There's no way the disparity is that big. There's no way. What was it? How many seats did he won? They won every seat, didn't they? But 2 or something.
I think so. I don't follow it that much,
that's
but I think so.
That's like what you hear in Cambodia, mate, where the same party's been for 40 years. Like they win one seat.
Yeah, that was crazy. And then he appointed himself the treasurer like a few days later, or a week later, or something. So, yeah.
We don't get no news about WA.
Temporary. Sorry.
WA is like, it's like a foreign country to us. We don't get any news.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. But as far as Andrews, I don't know, man. Like, I think I heard that I saw on Instagram somebody who had connections to the party or something, and this person who did the post said that the person who told him the information has been pretty spot on with all her predictions or all her whatever she's been telling him.
Yeah.
And she said that obviously was just a cover story, and he's not coming back. So,
mate, do you know what's a high possibility? He could have been taken in. They go, mate, we got you. Greg Hunt went down the same day. Yeah,
that's weird. Very weird. Yeah.
And then like you had Karkos, who was the health minister last year in Victoria. She resigned. Who's just said they haven't like picked these people off against each other? Say, mate, we've got the dirt on you. We want your confession. And I'm telling you, it's going to tie into a lot of this stuff that's happening with Crown Casino, which is going pretty quiet too. I think that's going to be a player in as well. But obviously, they're going to show connections with China with him. I mean, like, there's already public information about his connections with China. But like, how deep does it go, and how compromised is this guy? Because if you look at what's happening in the US and that too, where they showed the Chinese connections over there, and these people are going to be compromised. There's no way Andrews isn't compromised.
No, not
for
at all.
What? For what? I don't know.
Yeah,
I got some guesses, but
I
reckon he's on some bloody Hunter Biden style freaking laptop. I have no doubt. No doubt.
I think a lot of people are in that world.
Yeah.
They have to have the blackmail. They need to have some sort of leverage.
Yeah, and he's got cold eyes, mate. I don't know if you were seeing, like, because we were getting these presses every day, and he started getting a couple of difficult questions right before it happened. They were starting to hammer him a little bit, and he looked. There was like, I saw pure fear in his eyes, And it was almost the look of like, why are you asking me that? They threw it off script because it was every daily briefing you had was clearly scripted. And then these, you can see some of the reporters that are still involved in that system too, but they were going off script, and he didn't know how to handle it, and it was pure anger and fear in his eyes.
Yeah, I saw some photos where he just looked like he was high, like he on ecstasy or something. He was just like, see, you know.
Well, do you know,
crazy.
He strikes me as a MK Ultra subject. So I wouldn't even know what he's doing. He's probably just getting triggers to go out there. He goes into buddy Dan Andrews press mode or whatever from the trigger, and then he goes. But that's why, and if that is the case, then people going off script, that would affect
throws a spanner in the works.
Yeah, it fucks up the programming. But David spoke about the black-eyed people in one of his books years ago too. Do you know? You know Ted Heath, right? The British Prime Minister.
Yeah, the name sounds familiar.
So he was the one that brought in what became the European Union. What they call it, there was the European whatever fucking economic community or whatever it was before that. But anyway, he was the one who was with Jimmy Savile abusing kids on his yacht while he was Prime Minister. Yeah, and they even read a report on him a few years back. They were investigating. They said if Ted Heath was still alive now, he would be charged, and that was satanic ritual abuse as well.
Yeah,
and there's probably something. But anyway, David Icke met him because David Icke was in politics years ago. He was in the Green Party, and he went into the backstage of the BBC, and he's like, "Oh, g'day, mate. How you going?" And he turned around and he said, "Ted Heath, his entire eyes went black, no white at all." And he said he didn't say the whole thing. Didn't say a word to him. Span around, and he said just looked straight at him, and his whole eyes went black. And the only way he described it as if there was some entity within inside him, and he was scanning. That's how he described it. But I've almost seen that with Andrews. Like he get very cold eyes. Like they don't go. Obviously didn't go full black, but real cold eyes.
It's crazy. Do you think it's a function of just way too much demonic activity and satanic activity? Do you think that's what it is?
Yeah, well, they call it. They reckon there's like first and second degree psychopaths. Have you ever heard of that? So it's like the second degree, and that's usually caused by trauma, or obviously if you've been involved in satanic ritual or whatever sort of stuff, you're opening yourself up for possession. But that person can be deprogrammed out of what they've done, right? Or if you've grown up in a severely abusive environment, you can get attachments. But then there's your first degree, and the first degree is like you're born a psychopath. And I would suggest this is probably people like Hillary Clinton. And that's I don't know. That's sort of how I look at it. But yeah, I think both. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you've heard of those vril lizards, haven't you? Where they apparently put this lizard or something that goes into your eye and it takes over the consciousness of the person, basically kills it after a while. And then you haven't heard of those?
Nah, what's that?
So if you look up vril lizard, VRIL, I think it's just one L.
Like the Vril Society.
Yeah, if you look up vril lizard, and basically from what I understand, and they've done movies on this. I think a movie ages ago, I think it was called Body Snatchers. It was like way ages ago.
Yeah. I'll tell you a story about that.
Similar kind of thing. And basically they put this, the Black Eye Club, how a lot of people end up with black eyes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you've got it. What I heard is that they put this lizard in there. It goes in your eye and it messes around. That's why your eye goes black for a while. And basically it takes over the consciousness, and this thing pretty much rules. Is pretty much, it kills you, but then your body becomes this vehicle for the lizard to kind of do demonic stuff, and that's why a lot of people. Like a lot of celebrities, that they have those moments where they're just kind of completely out of it, right? And I saw this one video with Katy Perry. She was on stage, and she's singing. You see that one? She's doing some singing, and then all of a sudden she kind of just goes she stops and she's just like kind of just going
Oh, like in a
swaying
live concert?
in a live show, yeah.
Oh, shit,
And
no.
she mutters into the camera, into the microphone. She's like, "Master, I don't feel so well," and then she just faints.
Bullshit.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like when, do you remember when Kanye lost his shit and then they put him into the mental asylum? He said, he goes, Jay-Z, get those murderers out of my head. Do you remember that?
I saw something
He's
about
like, they're
that
all trying to
recently.
fucking control you and all this shit.
Yeah, because he was at a show spitting some truth, from what I understand, and they said he was nuts. You know, put him into a mental asylum because maybe he broke his programming and he
looks like a victim
started,
to me, and like the fact that he's with a bloody Kardashian, and then he spoke out about her to the kid wanting to have an abortion, all this shit. But you know, like body snatchers. I'm going to tell you this quick one. I wanted to buy this book. I wanted to buy it for years. It was called Body Snatchers, and it was written by a lady who talks about people who are possessed by reptilian entities. And she ends up, the author actually died in the Bahamas, right? Stranger drowned, okay? Just after she released this book. And I wanted to buy it for years, but I wouldn't buy it because it was on Amazon. It was like $500 because it's only in limited books.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Like, I'm not paying that. But you could buy a second-hand copy for about $20. But I'm always very sus of buying second-hand books because I've heard through like a friend too, he's told me like this happened to him, that you get actual entity attachments onto an object.
Okay.
Sort of like, you know, like in Harry Potter, like the Horcruxes, right? The entities can project themselves onto physical objects. So I'm like, obviously this book's about freaking possession. So I didn't want to buy it. And then I said, bugger it, 1 year. I'm like, I want to read it. I bought it. I got it at home, got it straight out, saw it. I'm like, I'm going to start reading it. I was like midway through the day and I got about 5-6 pages in and I just could not keep my eyes open. I'm like, I'm uncontrollably tired. And I fell asleep and I had the most vivid dream I've ever had in my life. And it was like in ancient Rome. And there was this reptilian in this cage. And I had to release. And it freaked me out. And I got the book. I woke up and I was like, I got the book and I threw it in the bin. I never read it.
No way.
I never read it.
That's crazy, dude.
I'll never forget that. Yeah, it was crazy.
Honestly, I didn't know because I've seen Harry Potter, so I didn't know that was possible. But that is a crazy story.
Yeah.
Man, that's nuts.
Did you want to talk about?
So I don't know, man. I think. Yeah. Let's have a quick chat about reptilians and because it's difficult to tell, isn't it? You on some levels, it's like you would have seen that video. Obama speaking, and there was that Secret Service agent in the dark in the room. You saw that one, yeah?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
That's a tough one, man. Like I can't. I mean, they're hard to sell anything on video. How do you know? Because it's like,
yeah, it's very easy to doctor.
It can so easily be manipulated, can't it? But yeah, like that is freaky. That video. Like I think I told you before, like the George Bush one's probably the most famous. George Bush scene with the slit. But have you ever heard of Sandra Fecht?
No.
She's a Canadian psychologist, and so she works for satanic ritual abuse victims in Canada. Yeah. And she said she knew nothing about this stuff, and then she started getting clients coming in. She does like trauma therapy, and a lot of them were talking to her about like all these, you know, rituals and stuff they've been in. But she said like there was a certain percentage, like 10-15%, that were talking about reptilian entities that they'd seen rituals. And she said it got to the point there was so many of them, and she had to actually acknowledge it was real. And then she even she started making reports to the police, and then they went and sabotaged her office and started putting satanic imagery and stuff like drawing on the wall. But it's just like there's so many of those stories. Obviously, like with there was like Christine Fitzgerald, who was Princess Diana's best friend. And David Icke, so a lot of this is in The Biggest Secret, but like she said that Diana literally referred to the royals as the lizards. That's what she called them. She said they're literally not human. I mean, there's so many. Like Jordan Maxwell talks about having experiences. Like then there's Arizona Wilder. She talks about seeing the royal family shapeshift and stuff like that. It's like I haven't had personal experience.
Is that the
How
one?
do you know?
Is that the person that? Is that the person that Dave Icke? I saw that Dave Icke interviewed a woman about that, didn't she?
It's like called Confessions of the Moon Goddess or something like that, Arizona Wilder. But she actually came out years later and said it was all bullshit. But yeah, I mean,
yeah.
she's only one of them.
My take on it is that because of the way everything works in this world and everything is hidden from us.
Yeah,
it wouldn't be at all far-fetched to say that there are reptilians or other alien races on the planet, you know.
Yeah, 100%.
And for them to be, it's weird though, you know, because like I said about the newsreaders, there's just, it's not just the fact that like it's sometimes you can kind of tell like if it's just so weird. Like how do the teeth go sharp, you know, pointy, and the neck's kind of like got a mind of its own. It's breathing or something, and then the neck, you know, it's like going all skinny and shit, and then the teeth, and then the eyes look weird, and the eyes.
Those old videos have got more value than the new ones because you know they can do so much shit with it now. But like some of the old ones are really good.
Yeah, and even this one woman who was apparently shapeshifting on camera, she was getting something in her ear that somebody behind the scenes was talking to her in her ear, and she's like, he could tell something was wrong with her or something, and she's like, why are you yelling at me? You know, so it'd be weird, like, and it's just I guess it looks funny when you see those cameras with those shots of the camera, because basically their face just kind of distorts, and it could be a camera problem, but at the same time, why is it just their face, you know? Yeah.
And this goes into the whole like the nature of reality too, because like David Icke again, he talks about, because obviously he's copped a lot of shit for the the reptilian stuff.
Yeah.
But he does explain it really well, because like people go, oh, that's not possible, and he goes, well, if you actually break down what the reality is, because he said that we're living in energetic information fields that then become electrical information, digital information, and holographic, and then it creates a 3D reality. So when someone's possessed, or if you go into the whole bloodline things that the people get the 50-50 split and they can shapeshift, all it is, they're different information fields, and that the eye from the other person is seeing a particular information field. That's all it is. And if you're possessed to a certain extent, you contain that alien or interdimensional information field within you. And this is what they say, that when they do shift, if you believe this, that it happens at times of high emotion.
Right.
And that's when that field can shift, because, and again, it's not a physical shift, it's an energetic shift, because you're not a physical body. And that's always made a lot of sense.
Sure. Yeah, I think it kind of comes down to just basically the way the mind works, you know, because the mind sends I said signals to the mind or the brain, right? And so you can kind of see, it's the exact same reason why a lot of people can't see what's going on in the world right now. They just can't see it, even though it's playing out right in front of their face. You know, it's a similar kind of thing. Because you haven't seen it before, if somebody shapeshifted in front of you, you may not even see it then. But until you become more aware of it and conscious around the possibility of it, only then can you see it, you know?
Yeah, that's right. And like only some do have the eyes to see. And that there's like, I mean, obviously you can go into all the native cultures and stuff. They've all got these stories. And the ones that have the ability to see into other realms and stuff, they've seen these entities. A lot of people talk about they latch onto the base chakra of the body. They've seen these entities and actually latch on to the back and control the person through that way. I even know myself, like when I freaking get smashed every now and then. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'll drink,
Yeah.
we just have a few, but every now and then I drink too much, and I like lose it sometimes. Do you know what I mean? I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm out of there. It's like something else is taking control of me. That's why they call it spirits.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Apparently, alcohol was derived from the term alcohol, which is Arabic for a body-eating spirit.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting. It's like, but that's, you see people, and when they're pissed, their eyes kind of go all glassy. It's like there's no soul there anymore, for temporarily.
You can see. I've gone home after a big night, and you go to brush your teeth, whatever. You look in the mirror, and you don't look the same. You can't quite pin it. Do you know what I mean? It does it does something to your eyes.
Oh yeah, absolutely, it does something to your eyes. I think it's just kind of like, it does a lot of things, right? It does a lot of things to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do. You kind of, you look a little like Andrews at a press conference.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to bed. I don't like what I see in the mirror. That's
Yeah, and it's interesting as well because a lot of people, we all have like a dark side, right? We all have a dark side, and sometimes when we drink too much, that thing comes out, right? It's like you don't have control over it necessarily, and then like you're not yourself in that moment,
Yeah, and I've had to look at that a lot myself because I've got these self-sabotage programs. Right? And
Oh yeah, it's human nature. We all do.
And it's like so I'm like, okay, why do I drink? Like sometimes I drink really hard. And I'm like, it's escapism. That's what it is. 100% for me. And I even enjoy I enjoy like the hungover feeling too. Because it's like I'm just gonna sit here. It's like I can finally sort of chill out, and that's the only time I can ever watch a movie. Because I'm not all like mainstream TV. It's the only time, and but it's self-sabotage because it's like I'm knocking myself out so I don't have to look at all this other stuff that's happening in the world. I think that's what's happening subconsciously,
Makes sense. I mean, I used to drink every weekend, and sometimes during the week as well when I was able to.
Yeah.
And when I stopped drinking, I look back on it and realized exactly what it was. Like it's an escape. It's an escape, and it's also a way to deal with some stuff that you don't want to deal with. It's like, well, I'll just drink these few beers and I'll feel good. In that moment, it's a short-term gratification type thing, and it takes a lot for someone to kind of get to the core of why they're doing, whether it's drugs or drink or whatever it is. Some whatever escape. It takes a lot for a person to kind of get to the core of that, because most people would just say, well, I really enjoy drinking. But that's not the reason at all. It's just like, if you think of it as an onion, that's just like the outer shell of the onion. It's like the thin part of the onion. That's like the first reason. You got to keep asking yourself why. Keep asking yourself that why question.
I love that.
Until you get to the core.
That's what I loved Mike Tyson's book, because he's the most introspective person I've ever come across. It's like he just, everything he does, he looks back at his past and his behaviors and why he does them, and can learn a lot from Mike Tyson actually. But he's very truthful. He's very honest about every mistake he's ever made too. And it's like, I guess we've got to do that as well, don't we? You got to own your bad side.
Yeah, not to just be honest with yourself, but also forgive yourself for whatever it is that you've done. Because self-forgiveness is one of the biggest things, because the less you can forgive yourself, the more resentment you're going to hold for yourself, right? And you're just holding on to this well, you should be forgiving everybody really as well, because you're just holding on to this resentment, onto this anger. And forgiving yourself, I think, is one of, I don't want to say it's the easiest. It's easier out of forgiving yourself or somebody else. It could be, it may not be, but at least you can start there. And because I think that forgiving, there was a guy a long time ago who hard to really to explain, but he did something to me in primary school, and I held, I think, quite a lot of resentment for that, for a very long time. But when I was in Melbourne, I kind of wrote him a letter. I didn't send it to him. I just wrote him a letter because I was reading this book, and it said, if you one of the exercises, it said to do that. So I was like, okay, I'll write a letter to this person, and I just signed it off, and it made me actually think about like the actions, you know, that he took, and because a lot of things that happen to you when you're a kid, you assume that it's your fault, right?
Mm-hmm.
When it's not the case at all. And I think one of the biggest things that I got from that exercise was just the forgiveness of him, but also the forgiveness for myself, because I thought it was my fault.
Yeah. Sure, that's so cool you said that, because like when I spoke to Rachel Vaughan a few weeks, probably a month ago, and she's a satanic ritual abuse victim, people don't know. And
from Adelaide,
yeah, and she spoke. And I've heard this off multiple victims, or sorry, survivors, that the best way to heal and recover is through writing. So what you just said, and you said that it made you go back into the experience, and that's so what they say with the trauma is you're using logic, and then as well as the right side of the brain through the act of writing. And it actually connects the hemispheres and can help build neural pathways, and it's a way of recovery. So that's pretty cool.
Right.
You said that, yeah.
Makes sense. I think that because of like you said, with the neural pathways, what's happening is you're kind of, in some ways, maybe you're reliving this experience, you know, and you're just strengthening that neural pathway. But when you create a new neural pathway, or when you start writing a new version of the story or whatever it is, then you kind of start to weaken that pathway, and then slowly strengthen the other one, you know?
Yeah. But severe trauma, or any trauma, can actually sever pathways. And that's where you get suppressed memories, because they're actually blocked by the severing of the pathway, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's what, you know, that goes back into like what the Nazis were doing, because they discovered this, or like perfected it, how to sever the pathways.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, and that's how you can actually, like someone say, like a Katy Perry, you know, if you're under mind control, they don't even know they're under it, because the trauma.
Well,
the trauma is it's compartmentalized in the brain. It's severed. It's blocked away into a compartment, and they do. You know, it's scientific in the way that they do the trauma, or can do.
Right, but even in with what's going on in the world right now, there are many people who don't even know they're being controlled.
No,
right?
Yeah, exactly. It's the exact same thing, isn't it? On a collective scale.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
People
I think the video is going to run out. I've set it for an hour and a half.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, but we got a pretty long one anyway.
Can it run after or not?
Huh?
Can it run later than that? I don't know. Or
I don't know.
Will it just end?
It will probably have a timer. It'll probably say this will end soon, and then it will have a countdown. But we could probably end it now if you like, and maybe do another one another time.
Yeah, man. Yeah, shit, it went quick anyway, didn't it?
Yeah, these conversations typically do. It was just hopefully something bigger will happen in the next 19th of April has been and gone, and did anything happen?
Nothing, mate. Nothing.
2 days ago, yeah, nothing. But maybe, you know, the timeline isn't always, dates aren't always, you know, timelines are ever moving, right? So something may happen this month.
Yeah, it's like beyond ever worrying about like what and when. I think that's like eventually we're going to hit this point where like collective action is going to actually drive this. But I can't see a big collective action happening without some sort of traumatic event. I can't. Everything's just everything's lulled at the moment. It's sort of pretty normal here now. It's basically almost back to how it was before all this stuff. If you take away all the some of the bullshit, but like the places I go, they're not even asking for anything. It's almost back to normal, and it's like it sort of pissed me off too, because I'm like, we were just getting there. We just needed one more hard lockdown or something. I think it's got to be the economy. I think when that happens, it's going to hurt a lot of people. Then you might get some collective action, some collective response. But like, I can't see it happening at the moment because people have got their comforts. It's going back to how it was.
Yeah, I agree with you about the lockdown thing, or something that's going to make people want to rise up, because it's the only people that are really doing anything are the people that know, and the people that don't know just think everything's going to blow over. You know, once everybody gets injected, then everything will blow over. But they, you know, I mean, Hunt came out and said that even with the jab, you're still not going to be able to travel to 2024. So I don't see why people were. I don't see why that not waking people up. You know,
we're just in a. The mind control is unbelievable. I really thought after last year, I thought more people would see it, and like it has been encouraging. It's like I've seen a lot of people wake up, but it's not enough. It's not enough yet. And there's sort of that anger component of waking up too. There's not enough people are angry. Like they want full control of the world and your body. We are slaves. We are. And
yeah, absolutely.
But we're happy slaves, and that's like what Aldous Huxley spoke about. That the people they'll love their self.
I got to read that. I got to read Brave New World and Animal Farm. I think I read Brave New World in high school or something, and I didn't really understand it back then. And
just watch the movie, mate. It's easier.
Oh yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
But Huxley and Orwell, they were. Do you think they just knew, or they were part of it and just?
No, well, they were Fabian. They were both Fabians in the Fabian Society. Huxley taught Orwell. He was his French teacher. Yeah, so they were in the same seat. I mean, he wasn't a bloody prophet or a psychic. He knew what.
No, of course not.
That's David Icke's always said that too. He's like, he's been right for so many years, and they're like, well, how do you know this? He's like, I'm not pulling it out of the ether. All of it, this is like they document what they're going to do. They've documented it for decades, hundreds of years.
Where does he find that information from, though? Like, where would pre all this? Because he's one of the few guys of the time doing it. It kind of easier for us to get information now, but where would he have got all his information?
It's pretty difficult. It's quite interesting, his story, because he does, I don't want to speak on his behalf, but he had a spiritual experience, and
I heard about that.
He was flooded with sort of information and stuff like that, but then he said what he was told by this voice or whatever was that sometimes information would come to him and or they would steer it on his path, and he said he would literally was just getting handed documents, papers. He'd run into the right person. He'd get, do you know what I mean? And he talks about it's a good lesson because he talks about it as the synchronistic nature of life. And he said once you're like, I'm going for it, everything just starts to open up. So he said
it falls into place. Like you meet the right people, and
he said he never went looking for it. Things were just.
That's interesting.
And then obviously after you write a few books, then people are coming to you all the time, aren't they? Whistleblowers, whatever.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? Like,
well,
imagine
you would have come across this before too. Like, I'm sure, like you just come across a new subject. Like I remember when the Mandela effect, I started hearing about that, like 2014 or whatever. I didn't know anything about it before that, and then it was just everywhere. I couldn't I was just getting like people are like, oh, have you seen this? And like, a new theme comes in and then it's just boom, boom. And that's the universe. It's just synchronistically, this is and what David Icke talks about, the puzzle pieces got given to him in the correct order. You need to learn this. You need to learn about the nature of reality before you can talk about this. It's great. That's how things work, isn't it? If you go with the flow.
I think so. I do understand what you mean. Like when you're kind of tapped into a certain things will just pop up, whether it's on like your YouTube feed or someone will send you something. So it's kind of similar. For me, I was kind of the opposite. Like I didn't know anything about how I thought the universe worked or whatever necessarily until probably 2017, 2018. But I'd already caught wind of the plan, should I say, the New World Order plan. Back in 2014, and kind of piece certain things together through all the research I did, with different things. And then, but it wasn't until 2020 when I really started to learn more, because I didn't know anything about I knew a little bit about the tunnels, but didn't know anything about the children so much, and the party drug that they have. I didn't know anything about that, but. So 2020 was a big eye opener, but at that point I already had a really good grounding on how the universe works, or how certain things work, let's say, in the universe, and it was easier for me to piece things together, and also to understand why so many people are, stuck in the matrix, really, because it's all in the mind. When you know how the human mind works, that's like your biggest key. I think one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle. When you know how the human mind works, you can see how it all kind of plays to, meshes together, and you can see how people are so blindsided by the nature of
Once you,
life.
like, obviously you talked about like when you got cracked open, and then it just, once you get cracked open, it allows you to be open enough to get cracked open a bit more. It just keeps going, doesn't it?
Does, yeah. Do you ever feel like, because you've clearly been on this path for a real long time, do you ever feel like you've kind of hit the bottom of the rabbit hole, or do you feel like, just kind of finding out new stuff all the time?
I did like a few years ago, and I always like, what's the next aha moment? Like I hadn't had one. Mandela effect, that was the last sort of big aha. And then when Max Egan started putting up a lot of stuff about the Tartaria, and then I was like, I don't know nothing. That just opened me. I'm like, what is our real history? We don't know history. We don't like,
Exactly.
and I think that he actually says something really good too. I love what he says about this, that because people always argue over history and what's reality and do ETs exist, all this sort of, is the earth flat, is it whatever. And his whole philosophy is, let's establish freedom, then we'll work all the rest of that shit out. Do you know what I mean? Stop fighting over.
Good point.
And I think that's true. I think when we get freedom back onto this planet, then we'll learn about what's real, because we'll have the right to know about what's real, and we're not slaves and being suppressed from information. We can go out and investigate and look without, So yeah, man, there's heaps of lot to learn. We're like, we don't know shit even now. We'll
for sure. Yeah, I agree. I think the freedom comes first, and because because you think about all the different theories and things that are happening and stuff, and it does just create a lot of division, as with family and friends, sometimes with different belief systems that you hold, and if we were all just on that one goal of freedom, like we would have achieved freedom a long time ago if we all kind of aligned ourselves with that one goal, and then later on, we can kind of figure out what's what.
But the first step for most people is to acknowledge that you're a slave. And most people
tough thing
you have to acknowledge you're a slave. You might be a happy little slave, but you're still a slave.
Yeah, it's tough to swallow that one. I think that's the whole. But it's true, isn't it? Because a lot of people don't think that. And sometimes I had somebody say to me, "Well, I'm not a slave," and I was like, "Well, really?" I wasn't even talking about. I don't know what we were talking about. It was something to do with maybe the financial system or something. I don't know. And I don't even know why they use that term. Why would they use that term? But they did, and it was interesting. And I was like, well, if you must know. But,
they're in a prison cell and they can't see the bars. That's what 100%. It is.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean, man. There's got to be something that breaks this. Something's got to happen. And I don't think it's going to be a good thing. It could be the financial collapse. That's when people are going to realize you're a slave, because everything you own is jack shit. It's all digital crap that doesn't exist, and some fake fiat currency, And that is probably almost the biggest control they've got over us is stealing our energy through wealth, real wealth.
Yeah, making you a slave to money, and you're working how many hours a day or sometimes multiple jobs, and
you're a time slave, aren't you? It's not even money, because I'm giving my energy and my time to spend most of my life, most of my day doing something for most people that they don't want to do.
Exactly. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely crazy.
There's a better way.
And that was kind of one of the biggest questions that I asked myself, just pretty much after I started accounting. I was like, there has to be more to life than working a job you hate and then just getting drunk 2 nights in a row and then doing it all over again the next week, week in, week out. Because what's the point of life? If that's what you're going to do, you're going to spend 40 years or something of your life, more just being miserable. I was miserable anyway, and I can't speak for everyone because some people really enjoy their job, but at the same time, you're still giving 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week or whatever it is to this thing just to live,
Yeah. That's what we said before, like, is that's Neo in the Matrix. What is the Matrix? You're asking the question you wanted to know. It was like, this shit's like, it's not fulfilling me. What am I doing here? What's the purpose of this stuff? What is going on? What is this control system? And you wanted to know. A lot of people don't want to know. A lot of people don't want to know. That's the problem.
I think people want to know, but they because you must ask yourself the question at some point, like, do you think maybe not? Mate,
I know people, they don't want to know. They don't want to know nothing. They don't care.
I didn't know anything then. I was only like 24 or something, fresh out of uni, first couple of weeks in, and just realized, but I didn't know anything about anything,
Yeah.
All I knew is that I didn't want to do that, And
yeah. I was telling people about all these pedophiles in the Australian government giving names years ago. And like, people just like, what they tell me, I don't care. Why would I care about that? I'm like, how can you not care about that? And like, how is that not something that you're not interested in? Like, this is crazy. How can you not? They don't want to know. They can't.
Yeah.
Because if I believe that, my entire belief, or the way I view the world, everything has to change. And I'm not prepared to do that because I'm happy with my little comfy sort of reality. And then the other part is like what Passio talks about, that if I acknowledge that that's happening, does that give some responsibility to me? Do I have to do something about that? Do I have to tell? That's what it's about. It's, I don't want to look at that because I don't want to have to do anything about that. That's how I see it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the biggest problems we're in right now, is that unfortunately we've all let this happen. And it's easy for someone to look at a country like Israel and see their jab passports rolling out and say, well, it's not happening in my country,
Exactly.
And then, but it will, you know what I mean? Like, it has to start somewhere, just because it's happening somewhere on the other side of the world doesn't mean it's not going to come to a neighborhood near you. It's like,
yeah.
And that's a problem. It's the victim mentality. It's like, well, it's not my problem because, and that's, I was at the supermarket, and this is just a silly example, but it highlights pretty much exactly what the biggest problem is. It's like, I was near the ice cream section, and some dude was in there getting some ice creams out, and he left the door open, just left. And then there was like a woman there, and her daughter was there, and one of the workers was over there, and the woman was like looking in, and the door was open. The daughter was just standing there, and I was just looking at her and was like, is anyone going to close this? Like, but that's exactly my point. Nobody, because they didn't do it, they didn't close it. So I ended up closing it. But that's the whole reason we're in this problem, because it's nobody's fault,
Yeah.
It's not our responsibility, but it's absolutely our responsibility.
Yeah.
Just because we didn't.
Yeah. And like these cabal types, it's not their fault either. It's our fault. It's our fault. We've tolerated wrong behavior. And we've tolerated too long, haven't we? So like, it is our fault. That's what this whole thing's about. You got to look at yourself, what we can do, even if it's something small. But like, yeah, we got to take some ownership for this bloody mess that we're in.
Yeah, and if you don't want to say it's your fault, that's fine. But it's definitely our responsibility to fix it.
Yeah,
it's certain things will happen in your life that may not be your fault, but only you can fix that thing in your life, whatever that is. So.
Yeah,
it's better just to take that ownership, whether it's your fault or not, and just to say, I'm gonna take ownership of that and just fix it, rather than go, oh, it was his fault, that person's fault, or this person did something to me at work or whatever, and just play the blame game, because that will get us nowhere.
Yeah, it's like a self-perpetuating cycle too, isn't it? And that's I think that's what we're here at this time to do. We're here to break that cycle, and like, this has been going on for thousands of years, if not much, eons, depending if you want to go like galactic and shit like that. But like, that's what I think that's what we're here to do. And it's like, people say it's not happening quick enough. Well, it freaking amped up last year, didn't it? But like, yeah, this lull's killing me, man. This lull's killing me. I want something, even if it's bad, do something.
We'll see some action.
Because like, oh yeah, I want to see action from the people. I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do. Just like keep trying to put out information, I guess.
I think that's a good point, because even though you're aware of what's going on, and there's many other people that are aware of what's going on, other than the fact that there are certain people, hitting the government with class actions and things like that. There are some certain people. There's one dude I follow on Instagram who's been going around to different businesses and getting them to put on different information on their computer screens about the jab and stuff like that, which I think is amazing initiative. I'm not doing any of that. Could I be doing more? Absolutely, I could be doing more. But it's a good question to ask. Like, what else can I do?
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. Man. But
unfortunately,
we have to see what plays out. We're probably going to have to take more action ourselves eventually too, aren't we?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, and I'm ready to. But it's like, on one hand, you're a leader by putting out this information. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we still need some higher up leadership to kind of tell us what else we need to do. We're happy to do the work, but we kind of, you know what I mean?
And I said this years ago too, because I just before COVID happened, I came back. I was speaking to my sister-in-law, and they were putting out stuff about jabs then, and she was getting worried about it. And I was like, something's got to happen. These people the people are never going to wake up. And I said it has to be done from the inside to some level, and there has to be some sort of bloody divine intervention or whatever. And then it literally happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. There has to be people at the top. If there's not, they hold all the power. I mean, we hold the power by complying, but the people, they're controlling the minds of the people. How do you get the people to take back their power when they don't know they have any power? That's the issue.
It's really it's a really good question, because even coming into the information like last year and being aware of what's going on and being thrust into the beginnings of the end, right? Of what could be the end. Yeah. I don't want to say the end, because I don't think it's going to happen, but it does take a lot to kind of figure out that you have more power. Somebody said to me, like, well, the government has more clout than we do. And I was like, no, they work for us. Don't forget that. Like, they're public servants. We have all the power. We decide. We should decide who gets in and who doesn't. And if they're not doing what we want to do, then we have the power to get them out, right? But I guess people forget that. We don't know our rights. We really don't. And that's the biggest problem. One of the biggest problems is we don't know our rights. If everybody knew their rights, and if everybody trusted themselves, this thing would have been over in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Last year,
And that's like the most powerful word in the English language is no. And that's the Matrix movie again. That's when Neo realizes his power and he stops the bullets. He just says no. That's it.
Yeah.
That's what he's telling you. It just said he reached the point. No. And it's like, actually, I had a friend. I went up to Brisbane, and so they're crazy on QR codes there. And I'm like, went to a couple of places, and they just won't let you go in. And I'm like, my name's Shane Smith. What's your email? Shane Smith. Well, so I wouldn't QR code, so I just give them fake name. And then she's just like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm like, just give them just give them a fake name. She's like, no, I'm not doing it. We're not QR coding. We don't have to do that. And went on forever. And then she asked to speak to the manager. She got their details. She's going to con. And I'm like, that was good. And then I looked at myself and I'm like, I'm being a bit of a bitch, actually, but I'm still complying, aren't I?
Sure, yeah.
And so after that, ever since then, I have not, every single time I've said, no, I'm not doing it.
You got to. I think you have to. I'm guilty of that too. If they ask me for it, I just do a fake name. But if they don't ask me, I just don't do it. Sometimes, even if they're pretty relaxed on it here. So even though some restaurants will say you have to do it, if somebody on the table is already doing it, then I just won't do it. But
yeah, it's the same here. They don't care.
I shouldn't do that either. I should probably just say no. None of us are doing it. It's stupid.
Brisbane's the worst, mate. They're absolutely mental up there. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, which is interesting because they haven't had too much of a crazy time until recently.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to go anyway, man.
Yeah, me too.
That was good having a chat anyway.
Well,
We'll be in touch, yeah?
yeah, sounds good. We'll wait to see what happens over the next week or two, and then we'll hook up for another
Yeah,
chat.
let's do it.
Hopefully,
Maybe.
see what happens
Well,
with Mr. Andrews and
yeah. Oh, shit, what's 2 weeks going to be? Mid-May. Mate, this year will be over. It'll be over before
yeah,
we know
dude,
it.
it's almost half the year gone.
We'll be sitting there in 2024 going, mate, what are they going to do? I don't know. But yeah, we'll see.
Uh,
We'll have a chat in a couple of weeks, maybe.
we'll be robots by then, I think.
All right, man. I'll talk to you
All
soon.
right, take care.
See you, mate.